Hey everybody, welcome back to Rick's Tech Talk. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I made this L-shaped computer desk that I use for my video editing, recording, and unboxing. If this is something that you'd like to build for yourself, you can find some free plans down below in the description, and it's something I designed myself in Google SketchUp. I had to take a crash course in Google SketchUp, but in the description down below, you'll find my Google SketchUp file that I used to create this desk. It might be helpful. So to start it off, I basically run all the wood through the joiner and the planer and the table saw, clean it all up, get some nice straight edges. This is something you can actually have a lumber yard do for you. Now, of course, after the joiner, take it over to the table saw and I'll rip off that second side. And then the last step is to run it through the planer so I can get it down to 1 3/8. Basically, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but the designs that I drew up basically have the wood milled down to a certain size. So right here, I'm working on the legs. These are the end pieces and also the corner piece, which is more like an L shape. And I'm using wood dowels so that way I can put it together and then take it apart a few times, just to make sure it works. And the wood dowels actually add quite a bit of strength to everything. And this is a wood centering dowel jig, I guess you would call it. So basically, as you tighten it up, it finds the center point in the piece of wood. Let it be a 2x4, 4x4, whatever. And of course, you can't forget to sand down all your pencil marks. Okay, so now we're going to get into the assembly part. So here I'm putting the wood dowels in. And we'll get those all tapped in, glued up, and then we can start sliding in our 2x4s. And if you're still watching at this point, please don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out and I really appreciate it. Now for larger projects like this, I love using the pipe clamps. I think they work a lot better. And you want to be careful when you're tightening things up like this that you don't basically tilt in one side more than the other. So you want to make sure that they're even, and that's what I was doing with the level there. So at this point, I have 2 end pieces completed and my corner piece, which is the L shape. And now we're going to move on to making the extensions that will basically connect all of them together. Now, if you're going to do a wood stain finish, I recommend that you sand down all your boards before you start doing your assembly work. It's going to save you a lot of time in the end. Now the wood dowels had 2 purposes. One was so I could put it together, and then 2, take it apart and bring it downstairs and reassemble it. And it just would make things a lot easier. And it did. But in the end, I found that the short piece and the long piece of the base could actually be screwed and glued together, and I didn't have to take them apart. But it was still a lot easier putting this thing together using the wood dowels. Now in this next board that I'm going to put in, this is the main support beam. This is what basically takes the weight and gives it all the support right there in the corner, and you'll see what I'm talking about later. And for the cross braces, I basically put those in with pocket holes. So right here, I'm getting ready to glue up the frame. This is the long part of the frame. And the top that goes on here will actually be the short top. And you'll see what I'm talking about later when I actually put the top on. Now this part here is actually the short part. This is the keyboard side that I'm putting together right here. So here's the frame all put together. Now this actually comes apart in 2 sections. You have the short side and the long side, and it's only missing 1 brace right there so far. Other than that, that part's all done. Now for the side panels, I use tongue and groove boards, and the first step was to make sure that they're all the right height. And then I cut down the end pieces so they all fit in like so. Then to mount these in, I decided to put one pocket hole in top and bottom for each board. Give them a good sanding. Now to get the same reveal all the way around the desk, I use this little spacer, clamped it in, and then screwed in each board. And just repeat all the way around. To mount the top, I decided to use my biscuit joiner, put it on a number 20 biscuit size, and I'm just cutting the slots in, and that's what I'm going to use with the Z brackets. Now this part I was really looking forward to. After running them through the joiner, through the planer, and then table saw, got them all cleaned up, and I just go through and I figure out which boards I want next to what. I'm marking which way the grains are going, so that way I can stagger them back and forth. And here I'm marking basically where I'm going to put all the biscuits. And the biscuits aren't to add strength, it's just to help me during the glue up, so that way, you know, they're basically going to be all flush with each other. Now, if you do a lot of woodworking, you know they have rollers and brushes for what I'm doing right here. But I like using my finger just so I can actually feel if there's any chunks of wood, you know, in there before I actually push them together. And then we put our biscuits in, put the boards together, and then we'll give it a nice clamp and let them sit overnight. And if you've never done anything like this before, you're going to want to take a chisel and clean up the glue before it dries all the way. It's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of headache. And then here I'm using the belt sander. This is actually 220 grit on the belt sander just to give it a quick sanding. And for the two tops that meet each other, I couldn't decide if I wanted to use biscuits or wood dowels, but obviously I went with the wood dowels. I figured probably work a little better, give it a little more strength. Now I have to mention real quick, this is the bottom. This is not the top. So on the top side, I actually did a pre-stain, and then on the bottom side, I just put the stain on. I said heck with it. Not going to see it. Now this is actually the second time I stained the boards. The first time I screwed up so bad because I forgot to go through and give it a final sanding with 220 grit. I actually had to sand all the stain off, all the way down, and then I had to restain it. So it was kind of a bummer. That was a long night. So here you can see I'm connecting the short side, which is the keyboard side, to the long side. Now here's something I learned off of YouTube. I don't know whose video it was in, but basically clamp the board on, slap the drill in there, and that helps you basically cut a notch right at the very top so I could just pop in my extension cord. Just like so. So my main goal for this whole thing is to make sure I don't see any wires hanging down from the front or the back. Okay, this part goes quick, but notice this is the short part. The short part goes on the long beam, and then the long top goes the length of it down. So that's what gives it the strength right there in the corner. And this is a triple monitor mount that I purchased off of Amazon. I'll put a link down in the description. I love this thing. You basically just slide the monitors where you want them, and that's it. And then here's the Z brackets I was talking about earlier. So that will help the wood basically move around without cracking. So here's the brackets I got to mount the keyboard tray. These ones were actually too long, but I put them up there anyways, just until I got the shorter ones. And here's my keyboard tray that I made. This is before I actually gave it a stain and a clear coat. So that brings us to the end. Here are some final photos of my desk as the way it's sitting right now. I absolutely love my desk. It was designed just the way I wanted it to be. The only thing I would have changed would have been the tongue and groove boards. I wish I would have stained them before I put them on. I would have been able to get, a better finish on those tongue and groove boards. But if it bugs me, I can always take them off and restain them. So if you found this video helpful in any way, Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. It helps me out quite a bit. And if you have any tips and tricks for me on my next woodworking project, or what I could have done different to make things better, put a comment down below. I'm not a professional woodworker. It's something that I like to do. So if you have any comments, I really appreciate it. Now, my designs were done in Google SketchUp, so I will have a link down below where you can download that file, and you'll just have to install Google SketchUp to take a look at that. And then all the hardware, I'll put links down below as well. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.